Hello, everyone. One second. Shift my view. Hello, everybody. Fix my hair. Okay. Happy Tuesday or Wednesday or whenever you're watching this. Day 2 of the YouTube live series. Diving deep into the divine design. How are you guys? So, how is everybody doing? Where are you guys from? I have exciting news. I'm so excited about this news. I'll be sharing it all over the place, but I'll share it here because it just came through. But I will be in Ireland on March 16th, and the tickets are available to go to the event, and I will be putting them up on my website shortly. But if you are familiar with Positive Life, Paul with Positive Life magazine, he is co-hosting it. So all the information is on his website right now. And I'm really, really excited to go to Ireland and to meet so many of you. If you're near Ireland, come and see me. I'm very, very, very excited to get over there. And meet you guys in person. Ireland, March 16th, 7 to 9 p.m. And I'll put the details down below in this video so you guys can go grab your tickets. I think it's like $50 or $40 or something. I don't know. I'll have to go look. But yeah, March of 2023. Making a note so that I can put that in there. Yeah, it's gonna be nice. So how is everybody feeling? We're gonna dive into the divine design again today. For those of you that are new and have no idea what I'm doing, this is a 7-day live YouTube series. This is day 2, and we are going to be diving into the 12th dimensional grid today. So I'm going to be reading a little section of the book where we talk about the 12D grid, and then I'll be answering some questions. In full transparency, I am utterly exhausted today. I am so tired. So tired. One of the things that I am acutely aware of right now as I'm launching my book is my energy and how much I am capable of doing. And really resting the moment my body says, enough is enough. And today my body is saying, enough is enough. So all of that just to remind you that rest is, I think, the most important thing that we can be doing right now, and listening to our bodies and what it needs, right? And not trying to push through, or motivate yourself to go do something, or we have this idea that we should have all this energy all the time, and I just call bullshit on that. I don't think we should have I don't think it's natural to have all this energy all the time. If you think about what we're actually going through, it's this energetic shifting, and it takes a lot of energy to do it. So honor yourself. If you are feeling exhausted, honor that, and pay attention to the deep programming. One of the things that the divine design does for us is it takes us out of quite instantaneously some very deep programming. And one of the deep programs that we just naturally kind of find ourselves in and just follow is this idea that we are lazy or not productive. If we're tired, lazy. I'm lazy. I'm lazy. That idea is so disempowering. This idea that we're lazy. It's mind-boggling to me. We have been fed these deep programs and beliefs that pull us out of our own bodies and pull us out of our own empowerment. So let's stay busy, 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 busy. The busier I am, the more productive I am, the more successful I am. And yet the more you may be disconnected from your own being, What if your soul is saying, please rest? What if your body is saying, please rest? And you're like, no, no, no. The key to success is to be busy, busy, busy. All of that's breaking down and breaking apart. So the hard copy of the book is being delivered now. So many people that said that had the notifications of it being delivered in October, it's coming in the mail. So if you're waiting for your hard copy, it is going to be arriving soon, regardless of whether Amazon or whatever company said it's coming in October. They are being delivered right now. If you don't want to wait, the paperback is available immediately, so you'll get that in a couple of days. And all the links are not only down below, but also on my website. So if you can't find a way to get it in your country, there are a lot of links in my actual website. So just go to www.lorieladd.com and you'll find all the links for the book in other countries. And we are also in the process of connecting with an international publisher that's going to be publishing it in a couple of different languages. I'll give you more details when that comes through. So if you have your book, let's dive into the 12th dimensional grid, chapter 2. Tomorrow, which is day 3, is going to be a doozy. We are going to be talking about the shift from the 5D down to 3D and how it happened, why did it happen, and that's always a fun story to remember. So we'll be doing the shift down, the fall from grace from 5D to 3D. Okay. Oh wow, it's available for hardcover is available for next day delivery. There you go. I'm just starting chapter 5. Okay. Yay, let's do this. Let's read a little bit of the 12th dimensional grid. I will say, and I said this yesterday, I'll say it again today. Um, this was probably the one piece of information that was dropped in that was the most, that I had no idea about. I had never heard of this before. I'd never read about this before. This was probably the most interesting, fascinating, and sort of like eye-opening part of the entire book. Everything else just kind of made sense and it wasn't that rattling to me or like, "Oh my god," right? But the 12th dimensional grid, this is a doozy, and it's definitely something that will trigger a lot of people in terms of understanding it and trying to wrap your head around it, your mind around it. So always with everything, including the divine design, take what resonates, leave the rest. This book doesn't have to be your truth. Your truth is your truth. You get to question everything. Um, and like I have said before, the information that is in this book is designed to be an energetic activation, an energetic remembrance. And so it is felt before it is understood. So, as I begin to read chapter 2, the design of the 12D grid, I invite you to let your body just absorb the information, the remembrance. So if you want to join me, the beginning of chapter 2, the design of the 12D grid, and then we'll go into some questions about the book. Okay. Earth was creating an experience. So before I begin, this is narrated by a group of higher dimensional consciousnesses that the humans call the Galactic Federation of Light. Wow, I just had this really weird flashback. Holy cow. So weird. I had this flashback of me in like 20 years watching this video of 47-year-old Lorie doing this really cute live about the book. That was weird. Does that ever happen to you guys? Okay. Anywho, super side note, very random. Let's go. Earth was creating an experience we had never seen before. that was both challenging and exciting. She was going to be allowing higher dimensional consciousnesses to participate in her experiment, both on and off her physical form. So, if you don't remember what her experiment is, we talked a little bit about it yesterday. Go back to chapter 1 and read about it. It's what she intended and created as a consciousness to experience, which is what we're experiencing now. As we stated in chapter 1, all consciousness that separates from source enters the quantum field and has free will. Free will states that any consciousness can choose every moment without interference from any other consciousness. We knew that all higher dimensional consciousnesses entering Earth's experiment could freely create their realities. We could not intervene, nor could Earth. We set up universal laws that would ensure some sense of order in the experiment, but we could not intervene unless the Earth plane was going to be physically destroyed. Remember, one of the laws that they created was the only way that the Federation can come in and intervene is if Earth was actually going to be physically destroyed. Other than that, they had to allow for free will, which meant that any higher dimensional consciousness that chose to be a part of this Earth experiment had the ability to create their experience. Sounds familiar. We knew we needed to create an energetic grid around Earth and her entire experiment to maintain a sense of order and control without interfering. The energetic grid would hold everything that exists in any now moment while participating on or off the Earth plane. So, this means anything that you have ever learned about, seen, heard, all galaxies, solar systems, things that are supposedly 200 light years away, that is all utter nonsense as well, but that's a whole other program. That's a scientific program. That's a physical reality. Everything's energetic. So this whole idea that things are light years away is part of the programming, but every single thing that we can see in the night sky is part of this experiment. Very hard to wrap our heads around, right? All higher dimensional consciousnesses participating on or off the Earth plane are within the grid. All physical and non physical forms we created are within the grid. Any experience, creation, dimension, and reality that could occur by any higher dimensional consciousness participating with the Earth are within the grid. Everything that is seen, felt, heard, and experienced on the Earth plane is filtered through a lens held within the grid. We knew that the grid we designed needed to hold at least a seventh dimensional field. Earth was held in a 5D form. So, Earth as a consciousness was held in a 5D form, the planetary body, within a 5D field. So she was existing in a 5D form within a fifth dimensional field. Her form, the planetary body, was going to be shifting into a 7D frequency. So the planetary body would be shifting into a 7D frequency and a 7D field. So a seventh dimensional field. The grid had to hold at least the frequency the Earth plane was going to be shifting into. So they knew that they had to create a grid that would at least be able to hold where Earth was going to be energetically moving into, which is the seventh dimensional field. Okay. We also knew that many higher dimensional consciousnesses would be entering into the field to participate. We needed the grid to hold high enough dimensional fields that the higher dimensional consciousnesses entering the grid would be able to exist within the grid. So you have to wrap yourself around this idea that everything is energy and these higher dimensional consciousnesses are vibrating in all these different dimensional fields. And so they needed to create a grid that would be high enough in dimension that higher dimensional consciousnesses in a 17th or 18th or 19th dimensional frequency would still be able to bring themselves into a low enough dimensional field without being too difficult or too challenging. Stay with me. We settled on a 12th dimensional grid. We chose a 12D grid for two reasons. One, it was a frequency high enough for any higher dimensional consciousness to enter it and remain without too much difficulty. So, for instance, if there is a higher dimensional consciousness that is vibrating at or experiencing itself in an 18th dimensional realm, it would be able to move its vibration down into a 12th dimensional realm and experience this experiment. It wouldn't be too difficult. But to move all the way down into a 7th dimensional realm is very challenging for a very high dimensional frequency. Just imagine um, consciousness is spinning energy, and the lower you go in dimensional field, the denser it is, the slower it is, the more difficult it is to be in. Okay. Two, it would allow the 5D Earth plane to eventually shift into the 12th dimension if she chose. So it's high enough where if the Earth continues to want to shift itself in a planetary body and let that planetary body continue to evolve into higher dimensional fields, it could do so in this 12th dimensional grid. We designed the energetic grid through intention and energy. First, we intended it into being. We knew we were creating a grid that would hold 10 dimensions, the third to the 12th. We intended the grid without the first and second dimensional fields because those frequencies are too low for higher dimensional consciousnesses to experience themselves in physical forms. So, although you could assume and you could say that in a quantum field, the second and first dimensional fields are here, they were not intended into this experiment. And because it's almost impossible for physical reality to bring themselves, or for higher dimensional consciousness to bring themselves into a second dimension or a first dimension, it wasn't necessary. It wasn't necessary to hold that in these in dimensional fields. I mean, in the 12th dimensional grid, sorry. Okay. Once we had the intention in place, so remember the way you create anything in the quantum field is intention. What are you intending to create in energy? So once we had the intention in place, they were creating the grid from the third to the 12th dimension. We visualized the grid, the role it would play, and the frequencies it would hold. We created a collective energetic pulse out from our energetic forms that was vibrating at a 12th dimensional frequency. So I want you to imagine that the consciousness that's speaking right in here is energy. It's light. It's a light form. Okay. And as difficult as this may be, everything is created from energy. And if you are energy, you could literally this is how we manifest in real in the third dimension. This is how you manifest. Your body has to vibrate at the frequency of the manifestation. So you're pulsating out a frequency that's creating a reality. Your body is pulsating out a frequency or an energy that creates that reality. It's just like I said in day one, it's extremely difficult in this density and this physical realm because of linearity and trauma and programming. But that's what these higher dimensional beings did. They're in this body of light and they pulsated out We created a collective energetic pulse out from our energetic forms that was vibrating at a 12th dimensional frequency. And the grid was instantaneously created and vibrating in a 12D frequency. As difficult as this may be to wrap your heads around, this is exactly how you manifest in the physical reality in the third dimension. It's just that manifestation, creation, there's no manifestation, it's creation. Creation in higher dimensional realms is instantaneous. All you need as a consciousness is an intention and the energetic vibration of that intention. That is it, and it is instantaneously created. And one of the reasons that there's many reasons why it takes so long for us to manifest at times, but if you could imagine us instantaneously manifesting, this world would be a messed up place because we would be manifesting all of these things instantaneously, and it would just be chaos. It would be cycles of trauma over and over and over. We would be literally like starved rats constantly trying to feed our desire for more and more and more. Right? There would be little need for self-actualization and self-realization because you would be um, in awe of this instant and constant manifestation. It wouldn't serve us. Okay, so they visualized it. Once we had the intention in place, then they pulsated out the energetic form. Boom. We then wrapped the grid and its energetic pulse. So this grid is going dunk, 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 around the Earth's form. It was not on the Earth plane. It was in the quantum field. The grid could not be viewed or seen from the Earth plane as it was in a 12D field. So if you're in a 5D frequency, you can't see the 12D. If you're in a 12D frequency, you can then see the 12D grid, the 12th dimensional field. You can only see what you're vibrating at. The grid could not be viewed from the Earth plane as it was in a 12D field. It is around the Earth, but in a much higher frequency, wrapping the entire experiment around its grid. So just think of like a big circle encased, right? Like this. I did a video of this, but think of the 12D grid like this, and then Earth. Like that. Right? 12D grid. And then everything that ever is, was, and has been experienced by the human is inside that grid. Okay? Only if you were vibrating in a 12D field or higher would you be able to see the energetic grid. And you still wouldn't see it. It would be more like an experience, right? You would be able to tap into the vibration of that grid. Oh my God, I could feel an energetic grid here. The 12D grid holds 10-dimensional fields. Each dimensional field is a distinct and separate energetic grid. And each field holds a spectrum of consciousness that can be experienced within it. Imagine the 12D grid as one large cloud, and each dimensional field within the cloud is its own separate cloud. So it's almost like those Russian dolls, where you pull one out and then you pull another one out and then you pull another one out, right? So within the 12D grid are all of these other dimensional grids and dimensional fields that are separate and yet within the 12th dimensional grid, kind of wrapped. And that's what we're experiencing right now. We're in a third dimensional grid, third dimensional field, but we're also beginning to tap into the fourth and the fifth, but they're here at the same time. You don't go anywhere. So it's like an energetic wrapping. Okay. It's hard to wrap your head around this. Because we're very physical and we're very linear. So it's difficult to understand the energy, but this is a remembrance. This is something that you remember in your DNA. From a distance, the 12D cloud looks like one dense physical form. But as you get closer and move into the cloud, you realize it's moisture. So imagine like a real cloud, okay? When you're in an airplane. You can see the cloud. You're like, "Oh, that's a physical cloud." Okay? But as you get closer and closer to the cloud, the actual physicality of it dissolves and it's actually just vapor. It's liquid. It's simply liquid. The cloud disappears as soon as you move into it, right? And that's the same thing with dimensional fields. So from a distance, hold on a second. Imagine the 12D grid as one large cloud, and each dimensional field within the cloud is its own separate cloud. From a distance, the 12D cloud looks like one dense physical form. But as you get closer and move into the cloud, you realize it's moisture. And as you move into the moisture, you can see other clouds or dimensional fields. What looks like one physical cloud is actually 10 separate clouds or dimensional fields. As you energetically move into each cloud, you no longer see the cloud, but simply the spectrum of consciousnesses within it. The 12D grid is merely consciousness holding 10 unique dimensional fields, similar to the sky holding moisture that looks like clouds. All 10 dimensional fields exist in the same now moment within the quantum field. They can be accessed by any higher dimensional consciousness within the 12D grid as long as the consciousness is holding that frequency. So if as you're in the 12D grid, okay, your consciousness, if you are existing in a fifth dimensional field, if you're in the fifth dimensional field within this 12th dimensional grid, you're not going to experience all the other dimensional fields above it. Your body's not vibrating there. If your body or your consciousness starts to vibrate into those other fields, then you start to access them, you start to see them, you start to feel them. But they don't exist until you as a consciousness begin to vibrate into them. So they're not there until all of a sudden your body or your consciousness vibrates into the higher dimensional fields. That's why the physical reality is so challenging, because everybody's going to say, no, 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 there is no such thing as these dimensional fields. They don't exist. Show me proof. It's like, you can't. You have to vibrate there. You have to vibrate into these higher dimensional fields. So we can talk about it all we want and we can have all the discussions we want, but it isn't until the physical form vibrates into it or consciousness vibrates into it that you're like, holy cow, it exists. Remember, the third dimension is just one reality, and it's a physical reality that requires physical proof for anything. And this entire experience is energetic. All 10 dimensional fields exist in the same now moment within the quantum field. They can be accessed by any higher dimensional consciousness within the 12D grid, as long as the consciousness is holding that frequency. Therefore, any higher dimensional consciousness, including Earth and the forms on her, have the opportunity and ability to enter any dimensional field within the 12D grid. So that was just a page and a half of intense information, right? So again, this is not necessarily for you to be like, oh my God, I got it, or holy cow, like, I can't wrap my head around it. It's more of a energetic kind of remembrance. But again, so this is sort of like the 12th dimensional grid is an energetic frequency wrapping the entire earth and everything that you've ever known to be real. Every galaxy, every solar system, every planet, every whatever, it's all in here. And they're all vibrating at different frequencies. right? And they're all in different dimensional fields within here. And your reality of what you're experiencing in this 12th dimensional grid is based on the frequency of you. And because we right now as consciousness are in a physical form on this planet right here, that's the reality that we're experiencing because of our physical forms. So we look out and we're like, oh, wow, look at all those planets and stars. We don't realize what we're actually in because the lens that we're using is a third dimensional lens because of the vibration of our bodies. It's limiting. That's why when you start reading this book, your body starts to vibrate. You get really tired, maybe. You have these physical sensations because the physical body is starting to activate. It's starting to remember the cells within the body. The light codes held within the cells and the DNA are starting to activate and look out and say, wait a second. The lens I've been using, what I've been remembering, what I've been living in is not necessarily the entire truth. And your body starts to vibrate higher. Your body begins to increase, right? Even just reading that one part, that 1 page and a half, the body starts to increase in frequency just by reading that, right? It pulls you into a remembrance. And then you get to have all the questions and all the like mind-blowing like WTFs, and that's impossible, and wait, what about this and what about that, and why not the first and second dimensional grid and dimensional grid. I don't have all the answers. I just have what they've given to me. But the 12th dimensional grid is what is holding everything together. And um there is so much more outside of that 12th dimensional grid. Everything exists outside of that 12th dimensional grid. That's the other mind-blowing, mind-bending thing. So, for instance, all these higher dimensional consciousnesses, including yourselves, have existed and are currently existing outside of the 12th dimensional grid as well. This is just a game, a participation that we're in. Let me just drop into this 12D grid and let me just drop into this experiment that Earth has created and play in this. So not only are we playing on the Earth, but we're also playing in a 12D grid. Both. If you guys remember in the book, if you've gotten there, the Galactic Federation of Light, they sent out a like a universal pulse or a call, so to speak, for consciousnesses to come in. Time to come in, time to play. Who wants to jump in? Who wants to play in this? And consciousnesses were like, oh my God, this is going to be so incredible. Look at this game that was created. Oh my God, this is going to be so crazy. Holy cow, I'm in. It's like this new version of Monopoly where you're like, oh my God, what? I'm in. And you dropped into the 12th dimensional grid, right? And I explain how consciousnesses are held in the 12th dimensional grid through what we call stars and galaxies and solar systems and planets and moons, etc. Those are all, they just look physical. They're actually not physical. In a higher dimensional frequency, they're actually consciousness. And then from there, consciousness was able to jump into the earth plane. So it's quite a journey. Quite a journey. Okay, so let's do some questions. Hi, Lorie. Which dimension do we enter when we die? I don't know where people go when they die, or I shouldn't say people. I don't know where your consciousness goes when you die. You probably go back, or you probably initially go back to whatever dimensional field you existed in first in the 12th D grid, and then you probably exit the 12th D grid and go elsewhere. Or maybe you go straight out of the 12th dimensional grid. I don't know. I don't know much about death. I don't pretend to know, so I don't know. Lorie, can you elaborate? Oh, we just did that one. I love this. I need to get the book ASAP. So when Dolores Cannon says we volunteered because we were told the earth was in trouble, that's not really accurate. No, that is accurate. So No, that is very, very accurate. So, as you keep reading the book, you will read that the earth was in trouble. The earth about 5,000 years ago, the earth needed massive amounts of assistance. Um, First of all, the term light worker didn't come into play in this game until the earth fell into a third dimensional field. When the earth was originally designed in a fifth dimensional field, there was no need for a light worker. There were just consciousnesses that volunteered to participate on the earth. A light worker, and that's the term a lot of us use, is a consciousness that holds the intention of incarnating into a human body for the purpose of assisting the planetary body and the human collective and all the animals and everything that's on here to elevate into higher states of consciousness. And there's a bazillion ways that a light worker can do that. But when the earth was in a fifth dimensional field, it didn't need help from humans. It was capable of doing it on its own because of the dimensional field that it originated in. It's very easy in a 5D. So what Dolores Cannon is speaking of is about 15, 20,000 years ago when Earth began again in the third dimension, the first call went out for light workers to assist the Earth, the planetary body, and humanity to start evolving into higher frequencies. And then about 5,000 years ago, the shit hit the fan. And you read about that in the book. And Earth and humanity started being pulled back down into lower frequencies, very similar to what happened millions of years ago. And that is when the second call for light workers went out. And many of you came in around that time, okay, but that was lifetimes ago. Then there was a third call for light workers, and that's the call that Dolores Cannon talks about in her third wave of volunteers. Started around the 1920s. The third call for volunteers, third call for light workers occurred around the time that the atomic bomb was being created, and there were massive, there was a lot of designing of, I can't think of the word other than weapons to destroy the earth. So humanity was once again about to destroy the physical planet. So there was there was a big intervention in the 1920s, which you read about in the book, and a third call for volunteers or light workers. And that's what Dolores Cannon speaks about when she talks about the third wave, the three waves of volunteers. But there was the initial holy shit, Earth needs help was about 5,000 years ago. So 5,000 years ago was the second call. 100 years ago was the third call. And many of you volunteered during the second call. So around the time that all of the masters that we know about jumped onto the earth, Jesus, Saint Germain, all of those masters, they came in around that time. And then you exited out and maybe you took a time out, quote unquote, a time out, right? And then you dropped back in at the third call that was sent out. Why does it feel like consciousness is ready, but the body is not? Because it's the body that has to increase in vibration, not consciousness. That's why. The body has to increase its vibration and frequency in order to pull you, the consciousness, into higher dimensional realms and higher frequencies. So we knew it would be this painful and difficult, but we still came in. Yep, we did. What vibration would you say the planet is pulsating at now? It's in a fifth dimensional field. So it's in a much higher field than the human collective right now. So if you were to think of like a meter, okay, like 5.0 to 5.9, it's probably at like a 5.2, 5.3, somewhere around there. But that's just a number to help kind of understand where the earth plane, the physical body is at. Why would Earth be so easily brought down from 5D to 3D? It wasn't. It took millions of years. So it's in the book, and we'll discuss it tomorrow. But it's intense what happened, and it's very difficult to wrap your head around as well. But it took millions of years. Millions. Do you think certain foods hold the body back from integrating light? It's a hard question. I think trauma can hold the body back from integrating light. It's possible that food can as well. Um, but when we release the trauma and we allow the body to increase in vibration, our food choices change naturally. Do we need to do anything? Just feel what comes up and be. Um, that's a hard question to answer. I think it's a unique question. I mean, it's unique for each individual. But I mean, the most important thing is to feel everything coming up, because that's how you shift into higher frequencies. Have you ever read Keanu Reeves' comic book series? No. What's it about? Does addiction exist now? If I don't understand that question, Jenny. Do cigarettes prevent our body to increase frequency? I mean, I think anything that we put in our bodies, um, that the body isn't naturally asking for, has the potential to make it more difficult to shift frequencies. I'll say that. Um, the 12D consciousnesses that created the 12D field also created all the consciousnesses to be experienced, including duality. No, no, no. No. So the consciousnesses that we experience in the third dimensional field is natural. It's the natural experience in the quantum field. So the 12th dimensional beings that created this experiment, they didn't create pain or fear. They didn't create those consciousnesses. When you, as a consciousness, are in a quantum field, which is what happens when you split from source, you're immediately in a quantum field where everything can be experienced. Everything and anything that ever is, was, will be. When you, as a consciousness, move your vibration down into lower and lower frequencies, you begin to experience different consciousnesses. And different consciousnesses are experienced based on the frequency that you're at. So when you're in a 12th dimensional frequency, you don't experience the frequency we call fear. It just doesn't exist there. But when you start moving your frequency down, all of a sudden you're experiencing some random frequency that we call fear. If every now moment is new, what about addiction? If every now moment is new, well, we live in a third dimensional reality, okay? And our bodies are holding past traumas. That's why it's so important to feel everything. So, and in this now moment, anything that has been experienced in the past is not being experienced right now. What's being experienced that we think is what we think is being experienced right now is what is stored in the body from the past. Okay? So, our limiting beliefs, our thoughts and our behaviors come from a past, not the now. So if you have an addiction, that addiction is coming from a past based on trauma, based on escapism, trying not to feel, based on deep programming, perhaps. And so that trauma, the emotions, the experiences that you had that you didn't want to feel move into the body, get stored. And because they're in the body, you're constantly capable of feeling it. And so one of the ways that you don't feel what was stored in the body from a past is that you create addictions that pull you out of the now moment, in which is what is being asked, and the now moment is providing you with what you need to feel. Got it? So in the now moment, are you in that trauma that it was experienced 5, 10, 15? No. But your body is holding the experience. So it feels like you're still in it. Feels like you're still experiencing it. right? And the limiting beliefs and behaviors and emotions that came from that experience, you're still experiencing right here, right now. But it's not actually right here, right now. Your current reality is most likely not showing you those limit not it's not mirroring and saying, "Hey, you're unworthy. Hey, you're this." Our thoughts and beliefs from the past are perpetuating that reality into existence. I was a publisher for 18 years until 2021 of December. Your book's numbers are awesome. Oh, great. What are my book's numbers? That's why staying present is important. Yeah, it's very, very important. It's the most important thing, right? Scroll down. If the 5D didn't don't eat flesh based on the divine design, and if dolphins hold 5D, why do they eat fish? It's a good question. I don't know why dolphins eat fish. But when your body is anchored into a fifth dimensional field, you won't be eating fish. And the dolphins exist in a third dimensional realm. So maybe they eat fish because that's sort of what's been passed down. I don't know. That's what they have learned to eat to survive. I have no idea. It's a really good question. But as your body starts to increase in vibration, you will start noticing your diet changing. You won't want to eat the densities of, you just won't. I mean, I still eat fish. I still eat meat every once in a while. Like I let my body tell me what it wants. But the natural process of evolution and the natural process of our bodies increasing in frequency will naturally move us out of eating. Eventually, it'll move us out of eating animal. But it's a good question. I have no idea. The children that are here now, are they already part of the new higher vibrations? Yes, many of them are holding much higher frequencies. They read the paragraph about the sun, and so it made me think why I've wanted more sun on my skin in recent years. Do certain humans know this power and why they want to try to block it? Yes. You have to start thinking about everything that we have been taught. All the things that we're told to be afraid of, to stay away from, to protect ourselves from. I don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist, but the earth was infiltrated about 5,000 years ago with these energies that have been controlling humanity since then. And one of the ways in which they control humanity is they make sure that the humans don't remember their power. They make sure that the humans don't remember how to be empowered, how to be sovereign, how to access their energetic fields, how to access energy, how to remember that they're safe in the energetic world, how to remember what the sun is actually here to do, how to remember how to actually heal yourself. So they program us to be afraid of the sun, to block ourselves from the sun, to put sunscreen on, right? To stay out of the sun. That's the last thing we need to do, right? So once you start recognizing what we have been taught and told, and then do the opposite, you'll start to realize that we have been blocked in our ability to increase our frequency much faster. Yeah, the higher self is already there. There is nothing to get. What are humans without the higher consciousness incarnated? Who or what is connecting? It's just a physical form. It's like if you've ever watched your have you ever watched a dog or even a human die? You will feel their energy leave. You will feel their soul leave, and there's just a carcass. It's just like a physical form. I'll never forget when my dog Toby died in my arms, um, and not only did I feel his spirit leave his body, but I almost could swear I saw it leave the room. It was so bright. And then what was left was just this heavy carcass. That's it. This physicality. That's all there is. That's it. Can you elaborate on the physical shape of the earth in the 5D versus the 3D? In the 5D it was round. From what they described, it's much rounder right now. But it was more elongated. The reason for the roundness is it allows for energy to move quicker or move faster. And so in the 3D realm, the density of the physical reality, the density of the physical field was so sludgy that the rounder the earth was, the easier it would be for energy to move through it. I don't know. I don't know how that works. You would think that if it was elongated, it would be easier, right? So I don't know. But it in the 5D, the way that they described it was more of like, I don't know if I can kind of like an egg. Kind of look like an egg. And again, everything that we see in the sky out there that we see as round or whatever is not necessarily that shape. Okay, it's a whole different ball game, a whole different. Uh, I don't want to get into it right now, but just because our scientists tell us that something looks a certain way doesn't necessarily mean that's true. Can you explain the individual and collective consciousnesses? Well, a collective consciousness is almost like a big family that came into the 12D grid. Okay, and an individual consciousness is like a family member that went off on their own to go to college or something. Okay. So a collective consciousness is always more homey. It always feels more safe, in my opinion, like more just like, oh, I've got a family, I've got a collective around me. And an individual consciousness is one separate consciousness. Collective is like a whole group of consciousnesses that are collectively experiencing something. Like this human collective is a consciousness that's one unified field, but it's also individual human collective human consciousnesses, right? So there's consciousnesses. Each human body is holding a consciousness that's individual and unique, but we're also in one unified collective consciousness. The people that have taken the jab, my guides have shown me their souls won't evolve. The souls don't evolve in the first place. The soul doesn't evolve. Um, and if you took the jab, that's not necessarily going to stop you from evolving in this physical life. Not at all. It has the potential to do a lot of harm, perhaps physically to your body, but it also doesn't. So it's all about the choice that the human's making, the free will that the human has. Um, but the soul isn't. I don't believe that our soul evolves. I have a different take on the soul than a lot of people. Do starseeds exist? If so, do they come from other planets? Yes, starseeds exist. Starseeds is just another name for a specific type of light worker. You know, this idea that that starseeds are the only ones that are quote unquote galactic. I mean, what does galactic mean? What does angelic mean? These are all just terms that we use to describe energy. Galactic, angelic, etc. It all comes within, it's all held in the 12th dimensional grid, and it all comes from outside the 12th dimensional grid. It's all just higher dimensional consciousness experiencing itself. So when we talk about, "Oh, I'm a galactic starseed," all that means is that you're a consciousness that came from some higher dimensional realm in this 12th dimensional grid that we call Palladian or Octurian or Sirian or Anunnaki or whatever name we give it. They don't have those names. We give them those names based on our experience. But a starseed is a very specific type of quote unquote light worker, light warrior, whatever names are really um, they're just tools. Okay. There are ways in which we can understand and label our human experience. So, a specific light worker that came in, we have labeled a star seed. And basically, what that means is um, you came with a specific call to be on the front lines of moving humanity into the fifth dimensional realm, which means that you're going to go first. A lot of star seeds are outcasts. They don't fit in. They know things that a lot of humans around them don't know. They're starting new things, new ways, new systems. They have abilities that they just naturally have. They don't have to learn them or practice them. They're designed to literally be soldiers on the front lines, literally pulling humanity into the fifth dimensional realm through their own actions, through their own being, right? But is a starseed the only quote unquote volunteer that's from a galactic realm? No. Because what does that even mean, a galactic realm? I mean, we're all, no one's from this planet. Nobody. No consciousness was birthed from this planetary body. Every consciousness came in from somewhere. It's just a matter of understanding the signature of your consciousness, you know? And starseed is just one label that we've used to describe the energetic vibrational signature of millions of incarnated souls that are damn courageous because they are literally um, on the front lines in a way that a lot of us aren't. I think we like to get caught up in who we are as light workers, what group we are, and because it helps us remember, it helps us to feel connected to ourselves, right? But I would highly encourage us to not try to, um, get too caught up in those labels. The soul is not the higher self. The soul is in a much higher vibration than the higher self. Imagine the soul here. Okay. And then imagine the higher self in a little bit of a lower vibration. Okay. And then imagine the ego in an even lower vibration, right? So these are kind of like different lenses that we have access to. And so the higher self is sort of a bridge between your soul and the physical experience, the ego, the personality, the roles that you play here, that which you are identifying yourself as, right? And then the I am presence, which we go into in the book a little bit, is an even higher frequency beyond your soul that is almost like this energetic light that's connecting you not only to your entire consciousness that's somewhere else, but source. Sorry, I've been talking a lot today. My throat is bothering me. The higher self is you. Yeah, it's not a reflection of you. It is you. It's you in a higher frequency, but who is you? Right? You are only that which you are identifying yourself as. So are you the ego? No. Are you the higher self? No. Are you the soul? No. Um, but are you all three of those right here in this experience? Yes. So um, it's kind of it's what's the word I'm looking for? It can be confusing because you're not the ego, you're also not the higher self, and you're not the soul. But in this human experience, you are all three of those, meaning you're experiencing yourself as all three. But you know that you're not the ego. The higher self it's like a it was created to be a bridge. So it absolutely is you in one sense. but it's the you that's in a higher frequency, okay, that remembers more. It's like a cheat it's like a cheat that we get to access between the very dense third dimensional realm and the soul or consciousness. The soul is different than the consciousness, but the soul that came in and the consciousness that's held within that soul. So the higher self is us, but it also isn't, okay, because we're not any of it. But on this planet, yes, you are the higher self. And the higher self is embodied more and more as you start to shift into higher frequencies. The higher self doesn't try to control. The higher self doesn't hold judgment around yourself. The higher self is in a state of flow. The higher self trusts in the unseen. Um, the higher self is doesn't live in duality or polarity, right? It's you're going to start noticing yourself experiencing you through the lens of the higher self more and more and more. The higher self is like the iCloud. Yeah, that's a good analogy. Yeah. Or is the soul like the iCloud? I don't know. Oh my God, it's already 3 o'clock. Okay. What do you think about flat Earth? I think it's just humans trying to figure out what we're on. I don't believe the Earth is flat or even um, disc-like, but none of us know truly until we're out of the body. Okay. Any other questions before I go? Did you see the movie Soul? I haven't seen that movie. What is it? Is it just called Soul? It's just called Soul. No, I haven't seen it. Sounds cool. I'm not doing a live event in Shasta. Oh, I should go see the movie Soul. Okay. Is it on like Netflix or something? Oh, it's animated. I don't like animated movies. It's a Disney movie. 1400 years ago, it was known. Um, but what about embodying your higher self? You're currently embodying your higher self. You don't have to do it. It just happens naturally because it's you. But then, of course, it's not you. But it's the it's an integration. Why now? Why are you teaching this stuff now? I'm not teaching you this stuff. This book came through 4 years ago. So I'm sharing the information that came through the book. I didn't choose it, and I definitely didn't choose the timeline of when I was gonna share it, Something bigger than me, um, brought this through, and something bigger than me published it this year, and so here I am sharing about it. This is not anything that I have, necessarily chosen myself. I didn't know any of this information, and I didn't create this information. Meaning I didn't sit down and say, "Okay, I'm now going to figure out how we got here." I didn't do any of that. It's all just got dropped in. And so now I am sharing it. I don't see it as a teaching, I see it as a remembrance. I am simply reminding you of what you already know that you forgot. Why now? Because it's the moment that it's coming through, you know? It's the moment that it's coming through. Will this type of dialogue happen at your book tour? I don't know what's going to happen at the book tour. I'll probably read, answer a couple questions, and then sign a copy of the book. Sign your book. I have such a mix of excitement and fear about your book. That's good. It's okay. Do you consider past life regressions important? I think if you feel called to do a past life regression, I would honor that for sure. I think we all have our path and our journey, and we have to honor that. Honor what we feel called to do. Right. So tomorrow is day 3, and Day 3 is gonna be about, the fall from grace, how we shifted from the 5D to 3D. I feel like there's so much information that we're just skipping, but I only wanted to do 7 days because I knew energetically I wasn't gonna be able to do much more than that. Um, so I'm sure there will be more coming in the coming months to dive deeper into this. There is just so much, and as you can tell with all the questions, it just goes deeper and deeper. So day 3 is tomorrow, 2 p.m. California time. The fall from grace. How in the heck did we go from a 5D to a 3D? Good question. That's another thing to wrap your head around. I love you guys. Thank you so much for your support. It truly, truly, deeply, from the deepest part of my being, it has meant the world to me. The amount of support that I have received in this on this book. I self-published it, and I have given my all to this book for 4 years. And to see all of you reading it and sharing it and giving it to your family and friends. I mean, there are people reading it in my family and in my friends that I never thought would read it. I'm like, wait, my aunt's reading it? Like, what? So it has given me life. It gives me energy. It makes me want to just continue to show up and share as much as I can, about what is in this book, and show up for all of you guys. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It means everything to me. So I will see you tomorrow, 2 p.m. And until then, be gentle with yourself and be gentle with others. Mwah.